All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hope you can all hear me fine. It's great to have you here for the session on integrating your people strategy into your three-year picture. I am Jonathan Reynolds. If I've never had the privilege of meeting you, I hope to in the days and months ahead. It's absolute privilege to be here with you. Thanks for joining to talk about this wonderful topic of people. And I am somebody who sits in the visionary seat at Titus Talent Strategies. And I wasn't always in the visionary seat. It was a swapping or a trading spaces with my current integrator. Lots to that story another day. And some of you are thinking, what the heck? How did that happen? Well, there is a story there. But want to, first of all, let you know this is a webinar format. So I can't see you, but you do have the ability to put questions in the chat. And there's also, so you can put questions or comments or, whatever you find fascinating in there to interact in the chat box, which you're probably used to with Zoom. Also, there's a Q&A function at the bottom, and you can put questions in there. Those are private. Nobody can see them except I can see them, and our administrator on the webinar can see them. And we'll make sure we get those answered at the end. I'm going to try and leave few minutes at the end for some interactive Q&A. So as you have questions along the journey here in the next 45 minutes or so, pop them in the Q&A section or in chat, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end. So let me tell you a little bit about life before EOS. For me, we're in our 12th year of running on EOS. The man in the picture there next to me is Scott Seefeld. He is my great friend, my mentor, and my integrator. And he's integrated since the beginning of Titus. And even before Titus, this picture was transitioning from a former company to this one. I was hired by Scott to launch a recruiting division in his financial services firm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And one of the questions I stood up with early days of our beginning of the company was, what do you want the next year to look like? How many of you want to see career growth and development? How many of you would like to get promoted in the next year? And amazingly, 40% of the company said, well, I'd like to get promoted. So I said, all right, we need to grow 40% then. If we grow 40%, we'll take the whole company to the Bahamas. Of course, the wild visionary in me got the side eye from my integrator going, what are you doing? And I said, just tell us the number. What number do we really need to hit to be able to take the whole company to the Bahamas? And so anyway, I'm massively thankful for an integrator who happens to be a CPA, former CFO, and in many ways a visionary in his own right. He's started companies, sold companies, and he's phenomenal. No, you can't hire him. Well, try it. Go on, see if you can recruit him. But he's not going anywhere. Anyway, life as a visionary is I get stuck in the 3-year picture of where we're going to be, where we're going to grow, what's the future look like. And the Bahamas incident taught me lots of things. One of them is that I need structure around me, because if not, the building's going to topple over and fall. So I love the concept of visionaries and integrators working together. Like many of you, I know through the attendee list here, seeing who has signed up, we got a load of visionaries, load of integrators, load of people sitting in finance seat, operations seat. Some people in some of your organizations maybe a bit larger. You've got human resources, talent acquisition leaders here as well, in many different roles in organizations. Some of you leading teams saying, how do I keep the people engaged and developed? Great question. Did we ever go to the Bahamas? We did the old bait and switch. Now, we said by the end of Q1 of that year, people were like, this is too much growth. Can we not go at this same pace? But then there was like a whole bunch of the company going, no, we're going to the Bahamas. So I said, all right, we'll scrap that. We'll just take those who really want to go at that level overseas to a wonderful resort. And that seemed to suffice. So that's when we launched our Circle, top performing Circle winners club. And we would end up taking the top 10% of the company with their plus ones, which we still do today. Well, we're not going today, but otherwise I wouldn't be here. But anyway, all right. So this whole dynamic of desperately needing structure is so important to us. But as many of you imagine, there is a load of dynamics in growing an organization, and getting the right people in the right seats is the make or break. You can have a wonderful vision on your VTO. You can have a wonderful 3-year picture, and you look at it and think, oh, it's so inspiring. Especially if you're a visionary and you kind of help map that thing out. It's kind of like the puzzle box. It's really hard to do a 5,000 piece puzzle without the box. You need to know what the picture looks like. But one thing we've learned of like A players, they want to know, what's the picture and how do I fit into it? Where are we going and where are we growing? And what does the future look like? And then they try to visualize, how do I fit into this picture? So some of these things, dynamics here is, we placed 1,364 people in organizations last year. Now, we're not a recruiting company. You're like, what? Of course you're a recruiting company. Titus Talent Strategies, isn't that what you do? Like, well, it's a part of what we do. Where we help with hiring, engagement, retention, and development. But one of the things we've known is A players are not going to make a career move unless there's stretch there, unless it's a bigger job than they've done before. You know, you often hear the adage, we promote from within. Well, when you promote from within, usually by definition, the person has not done that job before. They got promoted into this job. It was a stretch. And then for some reason, when we hire from outside the company, we have a different criteria. Well, you must have been doing this for 5 to 7 years. Well, A players don't do that. They don't make one move for the same job. They want to know it's a bigger job. Growth, meaning in 12, 18, 24 months time, if I crush it in this role, will I keep seeing stretch? So they need to see growth trajectory, which is great for companies running on EOS because you've got your 3-year picture, and now you just have to paint the picture of how they fit within that picture. Amazing, loads of pictures going on. And lastly, impact. I got to believe that in this organization, I'm making an impact. Impact in the world around me, impact in our business, impact on my personal life. I need to know there's impact there. Growth, stretch, impact, stretch, growth, impact, however you want to say that. These 3 ingredients must be there. And by the way, the secret is, look at your A players in your company, those who, you know, while you're sitting here on this webinar, if they were to send you an email and say, I'm resigning, you'd be like, no, maybe you are that person. And I would imagine maybe you're the person who says, listen, I am the A player employee. Do you know what stretch, growth, and impact looks like for your role? I'm willing to argue that if these are not presented to you in your own current company, somebody presenting it to you in another company saying, hey, would you consider exploring it if I showed you these 3 things? You may consider it. I know this to be true. We have a very high retention of our employees, and we do it by following this simple methodology. So my background in my last 2 decades has been in the people space, helping companies with their hiring, engagement, retention, and development. I did write a book on this, and it's a culmination of really all of the things that we found, the processes that we followed. You're welcome to this book. You can go grab the audio of it if you want. I'm not in the business of selling books, no interest in being an author in that way, but at the request of our clients, a couple of thousand clients rather, over the last 5-7 years, saying, write down your process. We want to use it and follow it and train leaders. So it's a leader's guide, how to hire, engage, and develop top performance. So this whole idea here really is, how do we get this whole thing to work? I remember as a 15-year-old lad growing up in the UK, sitting with some kind of world-changing visionary parents, and the youngest of 5 kids. I was sitting with my parents saying, what am I supposed to do in life? I'm not an athlete. I'm not an academic. I'm not, I was a bit more of a model back then, but model child. But I was like, come on now, where do I fit in this world? What am I supposed to do? How do I know what I'm supposed to become? And they said, one of the greatest joys in life is living in the service of others. If you can live to serve others and help them find their purpose, you'll find it very fulfilling. And I went away thinking, well, that sounds good, but I just asked you what was I supposed to do, and you just told me to serve other people. But ironically, here I am decades later, and that's what my business is, in the business of equipping company leaders how to make the best attraction, hiring, engagement, development decisions. That's what we do. And it's really kind of helping people find their place in the world and making the biggest impact. And so we're a for-profit, for-good organization. What motivates me is that we make an impact in the world. And so loads of lessons along this way here. But helping companies get this thing right with their people strategy is just so important. So today I'm going to walk you through really how to be more strategic in your talent mapping. How do you craft winning teams? And most importantly, how do you create a culture where people genuinely feel like that they are one of the greatest investments? I love how CJ Dubay, Mark O'Donnell, and Kelly Knight in their book, The People book, that they just launched this past year, talk about not people just being assets, but more investments. And I think investment is a great way of saying it. We invest in our people for the future of the business because we expect a wonderful return, but also we're trying to get somewhere. And so you want people who are inspired, who are engaged, who are dialed in, who are committed to the vision being accomplished. That 3-year picture and the 10-year core target are very, very motivational if people can see themselves in the future. And I think that piece right there is where we often struggle, as we talk in this desirable future, but people don't see where is my puzzle piece? Where do I fit? And they desperately want to know, if I'm going to be tied into the future of this company, can I see myself in that picture? I think that's really very, very important for companies of like really dialing in and engaging the best of the best people. So, all righty. So let's look at some of the things that are going on here. One of the big wicked evils right now, it's not a wicked evil, it just feels like that when you're dealing with your own employees. 70% of employees compelled to leave for the sake of career advancement. Now, there are loads of stats on it, anywhere from 65 to 90%, but people saying, listen, if the right trigger, if the right opportunity was presented to me in the right way, I'm going to have a conversation. You think, whoa, 70% of my employees would be open to having a conversation if it was about career advancement? Okay, that's a huge risk and a huge opportunity for us as well to go, okay, first of all, our current team, do they know what's next? And do they know how they fit into the what's next? And then this group between 25 and 42, these millennials saying, listen, I'll stay here for an average of 2 years and 9 months, but I'm going to leave for career advancement. Well, that's a problem because each of us here running on EOS as an operating system, we have a 3-year picture. That means that the average people are not going to be with you for the accomplishment of the 3-year picture. We're all dialed in on our annual goals and where we're going to be in the next few years, with the average people not being there. That's really quite disheartening. And I want to provide you with some hope that there is a way that you can actually get people to stay longer. Not entrapment, but actually getting them motivated for where you are going and growing. So you imagine those 1, 2, or 3 people in your organization that if they left you, it would be an absolute punch in the gut. And it's just too late when people say, I'm leaving. Well, what can I do to get you to stay? And that's why people throw money at retention. And it's not about that. It's not about money. It's about actually, do I have a place, the growth, stretch, and impact here? So as we get into this, I want to cover 3 talent strategies that you can use to really be better at recruitment and retention of A players. I often get asked, well, what about B players and C players? Are there room for them in organizations? All right, my definition of A players are those who give you 100%, period. So those who give you 100%, like you think of I don't like the adage of, or the kind of a metaphor of we're a family, come and join. It's a family culture here. I think that's too much interpretation for people because we define it by our own family experience, and many people don't want to work with their family. So I think high performing teams, meaning, if you're on the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, you were there for the win of the Super Bowl. It's like, where do you go next? When you're on the best of the best of the best team. It's not like, you're not that excited to go to a mediocre team, but high performing teams, meaning every single person on the team knows exactly what excellence looks like in their spot, and they're all wanting the same goal, the Super Bowl. So what is that Super Bowl for you and your team? What makes the win really, really clear? And how does everybody on the team know what winning looks like in their role? And that's really, really important. So my definition of A players are those who know exactly what the exchange of 100% of compensation for 100% performance. So we teach a process called hire for performance, not hire for culture. We hire to get the performance of the job. The culture and the way we do it and the values is super important. You don't want cancer in the culture. But number one, you also don't want people who are culture fit, who check all the boxes on that, but they don't even know what performance looks like, and they're not delivering what you hired them to do. Those ones are particularly hard because everybody likes those people, but they're not reliable to get the job done. So talent strategy is this whole idea of like thinking a bit more strategically. What do you need to get you to where you want to go? So what does your team need to look like to get the outcomes in your next 3 years? Like, who do I need on my team in the next 6 to 12 months to make sure I accomplish our annual goals? And like, when will you need to create and fill new roles to reach all of those goals? Like, I know that I need this. If I'm going to be a $75 million company, I'm probably going to need these roles that don't exist in our company today. And so when would I need those? And what would that look like from a success factor? And how will your annual growth create new opportunities for your team? Those are inspiring things for team, because a lot of organizations who are running on EOS are growth organizations. They have growth goals, growth and impact and market share and all of those things. Well, if you can tie that to the growth of your individuals, then people are way more leaning into the 3-year picture. If the growth goals of your organization, I used to tell this funny story of a founder, entrepreneurial CEO pulling up into the company parking lot in their new swanky Ferrari, and it comes in with the roaring of the engine, and a younger, newer employee, just sort of Gen Z, sort of standing there. Wow, boss, look at that nice car. And the CEO founder says, yeah, I know. It's an amazing car, isn't it? Just listen to the engine. I bet that cost you a lot of money. Like, yes, it did. It cost me a ton of money. But if you commit yourself to our goals, your rocks, our company growth, our 3-year picture, and really, really drive the performance of the things that we're asking you to do some overtime, commit yourself to our values. I'm going to buy myself another one next year. Like, yeah, oh, like we can all like laugh, but also the sinking feeling of like, yeah, that doesn't drive and motivate us usually to help our manager or our boss hit their own financial goals. By nature, we're quite we think, well, how does this affect me? You know, how does this impact me? And so career growth and development, like, you've got your 3-year picture. I'm going to show you how to do that to kind of really help you set apart. But one of the things I love, as you might be able to pick up here, is just this sense of an accent. I do have an accent. I live in Chicago. That's not where the accent's from. I was born in England, born and raised in England. So I like to say I'm British by birth, but American by choice. I married my green card, and one of the things I love about this country, I've been here 26 years. One of the things I love is choice. America is a country which is a great country, but there's so much abundance of choice, you know, in everything. And not only that, but we've got the app for everything. And we even, you know, get an Uber and you kind of slide to the, you know, set the temperature. I'd like the temperature to be 70 degrees. And by the way, I don't want you to talk with me or engage with me, to the Uber driver. How impersonal is this? But it's this sense of like, I get to choose my preferences. The customer's always right. Well, that is not just a customer-centric idea anymore. It's a person-centric idea. We all get to choose what we do, where we live, how we work, where we go to school, how people interact with us, even how that they should address us. And we get to, it's so permeated in the world we live in North America, that now in the employment sense is people will say, this is how I want you to manage me. This is how I want you to engage me. This is how I want you to hold me accountable or not hold me accountable. Here are my preferences. Wow, it really is permeated. And for many of us, it can be very frustrating, but also as an individual. We love it when we get to have choices. So that is the world we live in. And how do you actually figure out the right levers, not just to get people to do what you want them to do, but to actually get them to show up fully and give their all, the discretionary effort that we want from people. One of the things we have to do is learn how to adapt with the changing market we're in and all the different generations and things like that. But one of the core concepts that you get to use here is just this dynamic of your VTO, the 3-year picture of where you're going and growing. So this whole thing, I mean, there's a great proverb that says, without vision, people cast off restraint. Without vision of seeing where we're going, people become undisciplined or ill-disciplined. And so, meaning I'm not going to put the effort in because I don't really know where we're going. But when you bring vision and clarity of where we are going, people can become a lot more disciplined. This is why goals are so great. We have annual goals and quarterly rocks, etc. People get to really focus on those and make sure you go through. But people want a vision, but they have to see themselves in it. It's not just like, great, go for it, your vision. You know, that visionary has the vision, and I guess we're all here just a part of their picture until they exit the company. That's really tough for people to process that, because it's where am I going to be in that vision? So one of these dynamics here is, what do I need? Who is in the picture of the future of our company? That's really important to think, okay, who's going to be in there? Because and how are they going to fit in there? And not only that, what are they going to be doing that's really rewarding to them? Are they inspired about the prospect of their future? I think that the VTO is a wonderful, wonderful tool that you can use to attract people. When I'm done with this meeting here, I'm going into a final interview for our own company. And we'll have a few team members in there, but we're going to talk about the 3-year picture to close the deal. Like, here's where we're going and growing, and how do you see yourself in that 3-year picture? And if they can envision themselves in it with stretch, growth, and impact, and articulate those 3 things, it's a done deal. I know statistically we've got them. When they go to try, we give them the offer and they go to resign, someone's going to say, what, get you to stay here. And they're going to try and throw money at it. But for them, it's like, done deal. We closed you with the 3-year picture. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And I just think, if you're not using that, write it down and say, how do we use our VTO and the 3-year picture to attract talent? Not just tell them, here's where we are today, but show the future puzzle of 3 years down the road, which is inspiring and motivating and making people want to line up and join your organization. Because the war for talent is a war for who has the best culture. And part of the cultural DNA of a company running on EOS is growth. It's a growth mindset that in the future, our lives are all going to be better than they are today, because they're going to be more fulfilling and more enjoyable. And we're going to get to do what we love with people we love, making an impact, being compensated fairly, and time for other passions. This is the EOS life that we want to live. And it's like, man, yeah, absolutely. I talk about building a people-first culture as one of our lenses that we look through. Now, I love the structure, but people-first to us means that we structure things in a way that prefers and favors our people. What's in it for them? What's good for them? And if they trust that we care about them as a primary driver for growth and primary driver for hitting our 3-year picture, they will care about our business. And that's a huge part of it, of one of these dynamics of helping people to visualize their own 3-year picture within your company. How am I going to get there? What does next year's challenge look like for them? I remember a few years back when we sat down, starting with a bunch of our leaders in the organization, saying, okay, here's what the next 3 years look like for you, compensation-wise, challenge-wise, impact-wise. And we talked about the growth, stretch, and impact, and said, is this compelling to you? And I remember all but one person was like, absolutely, absolutely. And the one person, we got to have a nice discussion and dialogue around it. And they're like, well, what about this? And what about this? And I'm thinking, I'm so thankful that we had the conversation about the next 3 years and how all of those leaders could fit in it. Because it brought up the fact that somebody didn't see it. And we were able to get them to a point where we could dialogue around seeing themselves in the future picture. And I'm like, got them. I love it. Now there's clarity, and now there's buy-in, and that percentage of 70% of your employees willing to explore other moves if there was a true career development opportunity. I'm like, okay, it's easier now for people to say click to the recruiter or headhunter who's calling them, or click, I'm not paying attention to that because I know where I'm staying and because I know where I'm growing. And our recruiters, like I said, we recruited 1,364 people and placed them at organizations last year. 1,364. And every single time, the first question was, would you be open to exploring a career move if it was truly superior to what you're doing right now? And 80% said yes to that question. 80%. Now, we placed 1,364. Guess how many we actually spoke to get to those placements? Thousands of people who have said yes to that question. Now, to me as a business owner, I look at that as an opportunity and make sure, does everybody in our company know the answer to those questions already, so they're not answering it somewhere else? That's something is a huge piece. One of the things you can do is asking your team members, how do you see yourself fitting into the 3-year picture? And if it's not clear to them, then you need to provide and have a great dialogue around that. So, so if you want to attract growth-minded employees, they need to know that you're going to give them a path for growth. That's really, really important. So lazy recruiters and headhunters say, oh my gosh, your resume or your LinkedIn profile matches our job description. Why don't you quit your job and come and do the same job over here? Like, that's just lazy. It's the anticipation of where you're going and growing and helping people get there. So I think you imagine if you're trying to recruit somebody right now, or you've got a critical role in the next 6 to 12 months that you must fill, or maybe it's the anticipation of somebody resigning, coming to an end of their career, retiring, etc. You're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Often when people retire, you have to replace them with 2 people or 3 people because they've got so much enterprise knowledge and experience, and they're doing the roles of multiple people because of efficiencies, etc. Then they resign or retire, and you're like, oh gosh, now we're going to have to hire multiple people for this role. Like, breaking that out is really, really tough. Imagine you've tried to recruit somebody and you've got them on the phone and you've taken them through kind of where your 3-year picture is. Like, what are they compelled when they pull up into their driveway to tell? What story are they going to tell their neighbor who says, how was your day? And they say, oh, I'm actually in an interview process with this company. I got a recruiter. I got an executive from our competitor called me trying to entice me to come and join their firm. Like, oh, really? What's the job? They're not going to be like, it's the same job, exactly the same thing, but they're just going to pay me more money. You think, I would be worried about that, because if you're going to hire somebody to do exactly the same job as they have done and you're just going to throw more money at them, well, that means they came for more money, and that means they will leave for more money. And you're going to be in a constant cycle of like, oh, how do I pay you enough money to get you to stay? And you overpay for people. A much better way is looking at career trajectory, growth, stretch, and impact, and how people can be rewarded for value they bring to the organization versus doing exactly the same job. So thinking about those, I think giving people a vision for the 3-year picture, not just your company's 3-year picture, but how they can see it today. So, all right. So the future state accountability chart. This is something that CJ DeBay at EOS Worldwide, one of the leadership team members there, talks about, and is this future state accountability chart. What would that look like when you look at your 3-year picture, kind of like napkining it out, if that's a verb? Like, what would it look like? I remember when I stood up at our company annual, we're a 100% remote company. We say mobile. And so you're mobile, you can do the job from wherever. When we come together once a year, which we're doing this coming week, we bring the whole company together as 160 salaried team members. One of the things I showed, remember, each year, or every sort of 3-year cycle at least, is saying, here's the 3-year picture, and this is what the future state accountability chart could look like. And it's always inspiring. People go, wow, because it's a lot bigger than we are today. So when I show the 3-year picture, say, hey, it's 250 employees in these ways, and this is how we're going to make an impact. And people get to imagine themselves in different seats. Many a team member in our company don't want to be in the same seat or the same role in 3 years' time. They hope for career growth and development. So we try and show them that. And when we show the visual of it, it's suddenly like they can imagine what's in it for them, and they can imagine what they need to do to grow in knowledge and experience to be able to sit in the new seat, and how we can provide training and development for that, and how we can prepare them for it, and how we can show them the impact they're going to make. So people need to feel that sense of, these people that I'm working with need me. They can't do it without me. I'm needed, I'm valued, I'm wanted. You know, when a crisis comes up, they're pushing me out saying, go and do that thing you do. Like, we all want to be needed. We want to be known as that our role is important in the company. And so building this sort of people first organization, it's really, really important that the growth and development of your organization is motivated by what's in it for your people. If you have that lens, you'll start answering the question, like, how do I put people first to prioritize people over profit? Wait, hold on a second before you go, whoa, hold on a second. I'm not putting people over profit. My argument is, if you put people over profit, profit will take care of itself, because the people will go a lot further helping you become profitable because they know that you've got their back. Meaning, I remember we had a very difficult client, not just difficult client, a downright rude client, treating people really in a non-dignified way, etc. It was bad. Of course, they weren't a company that runs on EOS. No, let's just get that out of the way. And I remember one of our team members and one of our senior leaders saying, hey, by the way, just so you know, I'm firing this client. And I was like, all right, I trust you, I said. And they said, yeah, the way they're treating our team members is really, really bad. I've addressed it. It's not changing. And I said, okay, trust you. Now, as a company owner, thinking, well, who's going to replace that? How are we going to keep our team members busy? I'm like, I know our team members know the consequences. Oh my gosh, I need to replace this client with another partner. But they've got to believe that we're going to trust them enough, and then they'll come through for us. But if I say, don't do that, and I don't put our people first, they just feel like they are second class over revenue. So I think this is when we actually create people first organizations, our team members will run circles around, and you can watch them be committed and loyal to the growth of the organization. So I love this quote by Maya Angelou is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, but people will never, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Okay? I already screwed that up. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so people have to feel the level of, do you care about me? We feel that their safety and their future of their career is being thought through by their leaders. And in exchange, they'll take care of the things that are important to you. So I think anytime there are unmet expectations, kind of people start questioning things. And so we want to be really clear about expectations. We want to be really, really clear that we're not just trying to take advantage of people. We want to be really clear that we're making decisions that are good for our team members, and why, and how it all fits into the future of the organization. So I think that's, very, very important. This is why I say it's business, not family. And a lot of people love this. They go, yes, totally. Amen. It is a business, not family. And some of you are like, well, I feel, are you tearing apart this phrase? We always talk about it being family. I'm like, well, no matter how good that Thursday potluck is, whatever your definition of family, it's not what keeps A players, and certainly not attracting A players. It might be an ingredient in the whole cultural mix of your organization. Hey, we share meals together and have potluck, or we genuinely care about people's personal lives. I'm with you on this one. I deeply believe in those aspects of caring for people's personal lives and treating them with dignity and honor and respect. But we have to remember that we are first and foremost for us, we're a for-profit organization. So we say we're for profit, for good, that has a lens of putting our people first, our partners second, and our profits third. Like, we're not in debt. We're an Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company for the 6th year in a row, about to be. Like, there's some things that are really, really working, but our lens is always, how do we serve our people first? So this dynamic here, having an employee VTO or a 3-year picture with your employees, this conversation needs to happen continuously. How are you growing? How are you going to crush your goals? What's your reward? Why do you want to do this? And how does it fit into the 3-year picture? And that's just a real conversation you get to have with people and let it run through your organization. When we did this with our leadership team and just seeing it trickle down through the whole organization, that every one of the direct reports having this conversation of, how do you fit within the 3-year picture? Does it inspire you? Is it clear to you? And how are you going to grow to become the person we need you to become for us to hit our goals? Like, that is a beautiful conversation that really helps people, and it will prevent people from wanting to leave your organization as well, because they know where they're going and growing. So this whole, how do you determine the roles that you need for your accountability chart? I think one of those dynamics here is, well, it's certainly not an easy thing to do. This whole dynamic of getting the right people, getting them in the right seat for the 3-year picture to work, you can't go too far out, right? So in EOS, we talk about building your accountability chart for 6 to 12 months out. Like, where does it need to be for the company we're becoming in the next 6 to 12 months? But there is also the compelled 3-year picture and getting people to dream about that and how they could fit into that. I think that's a very, very important part. So employee growth is really part of their own path. Okay, so you've got to help people move into that growth path. And one of the things is part of growth, stretch, and impact. The stretch piece is, how am I growing in knowledge to become the person I need to become? So if our company is going to be a $50 million company in the next 36 months, going from wherever the number is, we're a $25 million company today, we're going to be a $50 million company in 36 months. Okay, what roles you need? Maybe you have a marketing manager or director right now, but we're going to need a very, very visionary, strategic marketing and branding person. Can your person who's in the marketing manager director role become that? Do they have the right skills and experience and the internal wiring? We talk about head, heart, briefcase. Briefcase meaning skills and experience. Skills and experience, that's a third of the equation. Another third being values and motivation. What are their core values and what's their motivation for growing and going? And then the head, meaning behaviors and cognitive. You think, oh, let's bring all this together. So benchmark, head, heart, briefcase. Now you really use these thirds. We would say hiring the whole person and managing the whole person and developing the whole person. All 3 of these have to be nurtured together. Skills and experience, values and motivations, and behaviors and cognitive. Understanding all of those wirings and bring it together, using that to motivate people to want to see the 3-year picture hit. So skills, starting with skills and experience, would be like, we have some people who's like, well, so I will be leading a team and I'll be managing a P&L in that point in the future. Well, I've never managed a P&L. How do I do that? Well, we need to give you some training and exposure to that then. So we're going to do it in step by step. So in the next 12 months, we're going to start exposing you to different levels of the P&L. So you can see all the way down the P&L. So one of the things our integrator, Scott, does is taking all of our leaders, and when we recognize the next level is P&L management for different leaders, so we just started drip feeding that exposure, knowledge and training them on it, experience on it, and then management of it. And it just happened over time, and we gave more and more exposure. But we needed that to happen to run through the organization for us to become the company that we were becoming. It's like, oh, shoot, they don't have P&L experience. Let's go and hire somebody. But you don't have to go and hire somebody. They're looking for stretch and impact. They're looking for that. So let's give them those things and help people become who you need them to become for the future of your organization. But you've got to be strategic about it. You can't do the, oh, shoot, we're behind plan. Oh, shoot, somebody resigned. Oh, shoot. And we just be a reactionary. We don't want to be reactionary in our people leadership. So I think there's loads of, we have it's a for profit, for good. organization. One of our team members said, you know what, my dream would be to manage the profits, like manage what we call the Catalyst Fund, which is almost like a foundation where how we distribute our profits. Our goal is to give $30 million in this decade. So by 2030, $30 million. We call it our 30 by 30. We're already 55% of the way there, which is really encouraging. At the end of 23, so we're, third of the way into the decade and 55% there. So somebody said, I'd love to manage that. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, it's not like a big thing to manage. It's not a full-time job. We could get you to the point where you're helping manage an aspect of it. And I was like, oh, that's really exciting to them. It was a big part of their why. Simon Sinek start with why. Why do they do what they do? That was a motivating thing. And so we're not Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A giving away billions of dollars. And by the way, those two organizations came together and said, let's start a foundation or a fund to administrate that, because it was taking so much of their focus. And so sometimes you got to be creative at how you do what you're going to do to provide career advancement for our team members. This resource guide here, if you wanted to, you're welcome to. This is like, if you're sitting here going, I need more practicals, Jonathan, you're talking these big picture ideas. How do I practically do this? Here's a practical resource guide for you that you can pass on and delegate and elevate to somebody else. That's what I do when I get any kind of resource guide. I'm like, all right, I'll read through it and then I'll just forward it to somebody else and they can figure it out. One of the perks of being in the visionary seat is so good. All right. So retaining engaging people. So like one is like, how do you get your accountability chart? Like, what are you going to need in the future? Just imagine what's the progression that would equal the size of company you need to be, and how many would you need in those ideas. Sometimes just dreaming about that and adding those in. And then the other part is, how do I use that to retain and engage and develop people? We're in such a weird, I think we're in a weird economic time. There's loads of things going on, from AI and automation to election years and the economy doing weird things and the huge booms and spikes in the tech industry. And then suddenly, all the tech layoffs in the last 24 months or 18 months rather, like hundreds of thousands of people being laid off. And you're like, what is happening? We're all kind of scratching our heads going, I got to grow here, got to grow here. Like, you certainly don't want to lose your A players. And so making sure your A players know where you're going and growing and how you're going to get there is really, really, really important. So most of us look at our 3-year picture like some kind of dreamy future revenue profit market, how you're going to grow in those areas. And you kind of like, yes, if we get there, it's going to be really inspiring. This is like asking yourselves, who are you becoming and who are the people that need to help you get there? And make sure this is communicated to every person in your organization. Start with your key leaders and make sure these conversations are happening. Document it somewhere. Has that conversation happen? Are people dialed into the 3-year picture? Do they know where they're going and growing? When you stand up in front of your whole company and you're living and breathing, this is where we're going and growing. Do people, are they compelled by the future of it? And it's very difficult when you're in an odd time, because you're like, I think we're going to get there. But if you don't show it, I tell you, people will be considering other options. They will. So when you're hiring, you look at the immediate needs and you compare that to your 3-year picture. I do want to, one of those dynamics I talk about, understanding the motivations of your people, the way they are behaviorally and cognitively wired has such a huge compelling factor on the way they process information. And so some people are more motivated by safety and security and where do I fit? Some people are more motivated by drive and innovation and the future. And some people will say, listen, I just want to be really compliant. Tell me what to do and how I'm going to do it. You can have a whole mix of that in your organization. And so use some type of an assessment to figure out how people are wired, because you bring it all together, like their values, their skills, and their motivational priorities. This is the early days of Titus. This is our leadership team, like massively innovation and agility. And when you have a founder-led company in those early stages and days, you tend to have a lot of innovation and agility, gathering people who are like you. That's my excuse anyway. But as we get to different phases of the growth of the organization, we said, okay, what do we need in this area? What do we need in this area? What do we need in this area? And like then you get the whole mix and the blend, right? So it's really, really important that for you to hit your goals and growth goals. If you're thinking, what is this chart? Where did you get this? It's the predictive index. We're a licensed partner of it. That's not a sales plug. I'm just saying, diagnosing where your team's at. If you need help with a diagnostic, we can do that for you. And certainly, welcome to conversation around that. But this whole dynamic, you've got to have the mix in there from teamwork and experience and process precision, because when you have a high-performing team, everybody needs to know that everything's being covered. You can't have an offensive and a defensive, and you like, I'm on a team that they suck at this area, and like I feel like I'm pulling all the weight. That doesn't go well for building foundations of trust. Obviously, 5 dysfunctions of a team. Lencioni talks about that, the biggest foundation being trust. Part of creating cultures of trust is everybody knowing what they're supposed to do and how it fits into the mix. All right. So that's another huge dynamic. If you are really going to become the company that you need to become, understanding a well-rounded picture of knowing how it works, whether you use any, there are 650 assessment tools out there. It's kind of like pick an operating system and run on it consistently. Pick an assessment tool that is legal, that's valid, that's been validated independently and enough times that it is one that you can use to keep people dialed in, and you can use it to coach and manage and develop. This is why predictive analytics is a huge part of our business model, because we were looking for something, wasn't just a weeding out tool for hiring people, but it's actually one that we can actually use to onboard and integrate people and help people understand how they fit within the big picture. So, all right, that's understanding people's wiring is huge for retaining people. Okay, I'm going to give you another tip here, and some of you are kind of screenshotting this, and I'm going to explain this concept like every good slide. Now, I ripped this off of somebody else. Plagiarism is always fun, isn't it? But I took this. I'm like, that's a great way of looking at things. So FORD stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams. This is something we use in our own employees, and we use it with our partners, our clients, that is, customers. It's a system or a pragmatic way of looking at how to systematize a deeper level of connection. So family, like who are their family? Like what drives them? Most people who are in an employment situation are not doing it purely for their selfish reasons. They're doing it for the provision of others around them, their dependents, their values, parents, kids, significant others, pets, whatever. Know their family situation. It's a big motivational factor, and if you're not aware of it, it's harder to be dialed in to keep people engaged and know their drivers. Occupational hopes and dreams. Obviously, you know this with your employees, what they're doing, hopefully, but where they dream of becoming, of what they want to do in the future, and helping them do that. Sometimes it's not with you, and that's okay. Getting the right people on the bus also means that getting people, when their bus stop comes and they ring the bell, that we don't shame them to getting off or treating them with lack of dignity. We actually celebrate people moving on in the new season of life. The next one is recreation. What do they do for fun? Time for other passions. This recreational piece is really important. If you don't know what the important to your people, then how do you use that to motivate them for the next thing? And then dreams, bucket lists. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually help people do and become things that are on their bucket list for their life? All right. These are just things that we've used for the people strategy. If you don't know what motivates your people, genius idea here. Ask them. If you've ever been in a romantic relationship and people start talking about love languages, like, oh, what's your spouse or significant other's love language? And it's kind of like, shoot, I don't know. I haven't asked them. Do I have to ask them now? I feel embarrassed to ask them. I should know this by now. Like, yeah, figure out ways of asking them to find this information out. It will really help you with a growth mindset if you're helping them grow into the person they're becoming. So we always ask our employees, what experience do you want? It's amazing. We get the funniest feedback. One feedback I got was, I'd love to go on an airplane and meet with a client, take a client out for a meal. And I'm like, that's it? Meaning a recruiter could get you to join their company, another company, if they just provided that for you once a year or once a quarter? I'm like, done. So I just said, I'm going down to Florida for meet with a client and taking them out. Come with me, please. Like, the cost of that was so minimal compared to replacing that A player. So sometimes it's something that seems a little bit trivial, but what is one area that you want to grow in professionally, we ask. And we see if we can provide that for them. Maybe it's books, maybe it's online learnings, maybe it's connecting them with somebody who's already doing this. What are you taking, steps you're taking towards that? How do you want to grow in your personal life in the next 36 months? What is something on your bucket list? Asking these questions I mean, it's amazing the amount of people who's in our company said travel was so important to them. They would love that in their bucket list. I could give you lists of things that people gave in our company, but that motivates me. What motivate you? Asking your team members what motivates them, asking your direct reports. Sometimes we look at this in a really grand way, like how are we going to do this for everyone? How are we going to administrate this? Just start asking questions. Oh, and by the way, what's one thing on your bucket list? Use it as a segue question on an L10. Just finding out these things is interesting, and make note of them. Maybe you can actually free people up to be able to do those things. I had one person just said, I just want to pay off my medical debt. I'm like, wow, on your bucket list? I'm like, sometimes we're in such a state of challenge and trial and trauma. We can't even dream about those wonderful things of the future. I'm like, golly, I want to figure out how much that medical debt is and see if we can knock it off for you. Like that changes people's hearts, their values, their motivation, and things that motivate them. So healthy turnover rate, somebody asked at the conference, was, what is that? Somewhere in the 10 to 15%. That's a big range there, but people are going to come and go. 2 years and 9 months is the average retention rate across the board right now in the kind of Gen Z millennials. It was 7 years. Average tenure was 7 years for boomers. Gen X was 5, millennials 2 to 3, Gen Z 1 to 2 years. You bring that average all together, it's somewhere around 2 years and 9 months. But turnover can be a healthy thing. Don't freak out about it. So and don't take it personally, especially visionaries. I think we can take it personally when people leave us. Did you hear that? People leave us. We feel like they've left us. They've left our vision, left all of these things. It's okay. We think people are going to be with us until the end, but that's not how it works. But helping people on their journey of life. So when people do leave, when people get off the bus, honor them on their way out. Don't be the company that says, well, they were never that good. They weren't that good. Like, well, you hired them. Take some ownership of that. It's a 50-50 deal. They chose to join us and we chose to hire them. At some point in time, we told the whole company that they were a great hire. When did they become not a good hire? Because we had something to do with that. So now that they're bad, just take some ownership, okay, of those things and honor people when it comes to their end of their time. So we talk about, letting people go with dignity and celebrating them. It's gonna be tough especially if they're not going willingly. All right. I'm gonna change a little tact here and open up. Do you have some questions coming in? One of the questions was, what's one way you show employees you care? I think I have answered that one. I hope I have. But one of the acronym of FORD, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, finding those things out and actually showing intentionality around those things can show that we care. Very, very important. I'm answering that live. A couple of people answered that question, so great. Another one is, how do you document what a 3-year plan for each employee is? That's a great one. If I'm sitting down with a team member, so I only have a few direct reports as the visionary, but saying, here's the 3-year picture for the company. Number one, does that inspire you personally? How do you see yourself fitting into that? What is a dream that comes to, do you have a kind of an idea or a dream of what that could look like for you? And how do you fit into that? What knowledge or gaps are you missing to get there? And how do I serve you in helping you become that person who's got the stature and measure to lead in that way? And if there's like some gaps in knowledge or experience, like, okay, are you the best person to have that knowledge or experience, or should we outsource it to somebody else and keep you focused in your unique ability? Or if it's like, no, I really do want to learn in that. Maybe I won't be the best, but I'm like, great, well, let's find a peer who could actually be a peer or a mentor to you. And learning, is there a book or a podcast or online workshops that we could have you take that could help you grow in this area? Can be another huge one. So this one here is, we are very happy to help you with this, by the way. So that QR code we had up earlier, if you want to hit that, you think, I just want to, how do I let you know I want to talk about this stuff? I probably will be overly committed if I said, oh, we have hundreds of people signing up for this who are on this webinar here today. So I'm giving myself freely on that one's probably not realistic, but asking the question and then start mapping it out and saying, what can you do in the next 90 days? What can you do in the next 6 to 12 months? What do you need to know to become that person? And writing it down and just checking in regularly and put some goals around it. They can have some personal rocks around it. So yeah, absolutely. You want to measure it, you know. Another question here is it an ongoing conversation about the future of the company and how they work towards it? Yeah, it is. Don't, you know, if my wife, I've been married for 21 years. If my wife says we have not had a date night in weeks, I've learned not to be like, yeah, we have, and start arguing about it. Because remember that Maya Angelou quote? It's like, people don't remember what you did or said, it's how they feel. And my wife is feeling disconnected. That's what that means. It's not because she's hungry and wants dinner. Like, we have dinner every day. It was like, I have not had a date night, and I don't feel like I'm priority. I'm like, okay, don't argue it. Go, okay, let's have that conversation. If you don't feel like we spent the time together, if somebody goes, I don't know where we're going and growing, I'm like, well, I've already explained it. It's on the VTO. Like, don't respond and react in defense. Actually provide the picture of, oh, we need to sit down again because it's really important to me that you see yourself in the future here. And so that's a great way of doing that. All righty, I'm just trying to make sure I'm answering these questions here. I think that's more open for another one or two questions here. Or, hey, give you back 2.5 minutes to go and change the world. Feel free to click follow me on LinkedIn or any social media channels. We are very, very thankful for our relationships with hundreds of the EOS implementers, with integrators and people in the fractional community. No matter what your role is in an organization, we are here to equip you and serve you how to make the best attraction. How do you attract talent? How to hire talent and do a better job of hiring A players, backed up by those who hit their performance objectives. How do I engage talent, and how do I develop talent? And so all of that coming together as a people strategy company. We do it in two ways. One is we can help you with critical searches, or we can be a long-term partner for you, like a fractional talent leader in your organization. If you want a conversation about any of those things, it is a privilege to provide food for your thoughts, and hopefully helping you think in fresher ways about talent and people strategy. We're here to help, here to serve. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.